Fun fact, Batman frequently visits my house. Just kidding, it's Bella.
Mr. FLIXTER!
Hello world, it's Mr. FLIXTER, and I just love talking motion pictures. In celebration of the new Batman film this year, I'm going to review a bunch of Batman films. Because I might not have been a fan of the new Batman film, but I love Batman. So, in order to qualify, it has to be a Batman film that's released in theaters, and it has to be about Batman, and by that I mean Batman has to be the central focus. So I'm not going to touch on the spin-off movies like Catwoman, both the Suicide Squad movies, that Joker movie that came out not so long ago. Things like that, they don't really apply. Here's a preview of some of the movies I'm going to do in the next few months. Now, for this week's episode, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. Batman 1989? I mean, come on. Batman 1966? Well, isn't that cute? But it's wrong! For this week's episode, we're going to go all the way back to Batman 1943. This review is going to be spoiler-free. Now, originally, this was released as a 15-chapter serial, released weekly over time in theaters. When it first came out, Batman debuted in 1939, and he was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger 4 years after his debut in the comics. This makes it the first theatrical release for Batman ever. Fun fact, Bob Kane has a delightful cameo as a newsie way before Stan Lee made that a thing. And I love all their movies that are still in black and white, which makes me wonder, what would Bella and Elsa look like in black and white? Oh, not only that, there's a lot of historical value behind this film too, because a lot of the things that were introduced in have become mainstays to the Batman we know and love today. For example, this film introduces the Bat symbol. It introduces the Bat Cave. It introduces Robin, the costumes, Alfred, and the secret passageways in Wayne Manor. Now, the reason that this review is spoiler-free is because I really want to encourage people to try and watch this if they can. It's available on Tubi and YouTube for free. I'm in Ontario, Canada, so depending on your state or province, you never know until you actually look for yourself. So why don't you just take a look and see? I'll put links for that below. So when you binge watch all 15 episodes in a row, it comes to a runtime of about 3.5 hours. But it doesn't even feel that long. If you can sit through the 3 hours of the new Batman film, surely you can sit through this. So the basic premise for this is it takes place shortly after the events of Pearl Harbor, and it's all about a guy named Dr. Tito Daka. He's a Japanese spy master, and is using mind control to brainwash American scientists for his own nefarious purposes. Now, keep in mind, this is very much World War II propaganda. Like, it doesn't get more propaganda-y than this. Is that a word? Now it is. That being said, this film being made in the 40s, it's also extremely racist and sexist. Almost comically so. It was a completely different time back then. For example, Batman and other characters often say off-color remarks like, "I'm not afraid of those squint eyes." I mean, come on. And they use another colorful phrase too that I won't say, but it rhymes with lap or chap. It was directed by Lambert Hillier. And I love a lot of the old traditional techniques that they used to use in the 40s, like the use of miniatures, for example. There's a lot of impressive fight scenes in this too. I really like the fight choreography, especially some of the locations. Some of them are on top of skyscrapers. This one especially, that's on top of like a railroad bridge. And a lot of the ways that they filmed it made me wonder how they did it, which is pure movie magic right there at its best. These days everything is just all CGI, so you just kind of write it off. It's all soulless. But this really has heart to it, because you can see the effort made into making this come to life. This film was written by Victor McLeod, Leslie Schwabacher, and Harry L. Fraser. And it's got a good pace to it. When you watch it all the way through, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's 3.5 hours. It goes by pretty quickly. And it's individual episodes too, and it's really action-packed. If you can look past the racial stuff, and you can look past the sexist stuff, because women weren't really highly looked upon back then it's still a pretty good story as far as conspiracy goes. And if you look past the propaganda especially, you might actually enjoy yourself. And I love how it shows the detective aspects, because Batman and Robin investigate crime scenes together, and then they go to the Batcave and they do science experiments to try and get leads on the clues that they found in order to figure out how to stop Dr. Daka. I'll get to him later. Now, granted, this film does have its plot holes, inexplicably getting out of situations that are certain death, and also there's times where Batman and Robin are in two places at once, or somehow they get ahead of the bad guy, and it's totally unexplainable. They just appear. It's almost like they can both teleport. Aside from that, it doesn't take itself too seriously either. It very much knows it's a comic book film, and it's not trying to be anything else but that. Aside from its overt political messages, of course. The film stars Lewis Wilson as Batman and Bruce Wayne, and he does a good job at that duality between the two characters, because he's very confident and calculated when he's Batman, but on the other hand, when he's Bruce Wayne, he's more oafish and more bumbly, therefore being quickly dismissed as a suspect for who the Batman could be. Also, side note back to the writing, I like how Dr. Daka was smart enough to ask the question, is it possible that there's more than one Batman? Not many villains do that. They just assume it's one guy, and then some other guy, Robin, helping him out. So, kudos to them for that. As far as Wilson's performance goes, I think he does good in both roles, because I believed him as both the billionaire and as the Caped Crusader. The film also stars Douglas Croft as Robin, and unfortunately, he's pretty one-dimensional as far as character development goes. Batman's the only really one that gets all that good stuff. But he's so enthusiastic in the role, it's hard not to like him. He's just got such a liveliness to him. You can tell he's having a lot of fun in the character. And it's nice that Batman has that sidekick too, because he's not always included in the Batman movies. They're not paired together enough in my opinion, so that was a nice surprise, because this was my first viewing of it. I really enjoyed him as the character. I liked him as Dick Grayson too, because he was very articulate. He's not just a moron or just some bumbling oaf or anything like that. He's actually intelligent. He's pretty smart in the crime investigations too, because he helps Batman out a lot. He even notices stuff Batman misses, which I thought was a nice touch. Shirley Patterson is Linda Page. It's an odd character choice because she debuted in Batman #5 in 1941, and then she hasn't really made many appearances since then, and not until the 80s when she started reappearing again. So it's nice to have a different character, at least when it comes to this, but unfortunately she's one-dimensional because the women weren't written the best back then, so she's more relegated to a damsel in distress kind of role. She's not the strong, independent woman that we see in films today. But again, it was a different time. William Austin plays Alfred, the loyal butler. Fun fact, prior to this in the comics, Alfred was drawn differently than what he looks like now. It wasn't until this film that he was drawn more lanky with the pencil mustache. J. Carroll Naish plays Dr. Tito Daka. And because of the racial issues that had to do with the character, because he was solely created for the purposes of this film, I found that out during my research. But anyways, because of that, it wouldn't be until 1985 until he got his official comic book debut, and they had to completely reinvent and reimagine the character. Based on this performance, if you're going past the racial stuff, he actually does give a very menacing performance as the stoic criminal mastermind, and poses a real threat to Batman and people he knows around him. In conclusion, I highly recommend this to Bat fans if you haven't seen this before. If you can look past all the propaganda aspects and the racial stuff and the sexist stuff, there's actually a really entertaining film here. It's a smaller scale story, and it's surprisingly not an origin story. They only touch on that briefly in the beginning. But actually what we have here is a story of corruption and greed and war. So I wrote a review on Facebook and Medium. I'll put links for that below. And my official grade for this is large popcorn. Have you seen this film before? Leave comments down below and we can talk about it. Make sure you stay tuned for more Batman content. Same bat time, same bat channel. Please keep in mind, this is only my opinion, and it's okay to agree to disagree with me. All I ask is that you have some class about it. So until next time, I'm Mr. FLIXTER. And I just love motion pictures. Have a great day.
Mr. FLIXTER.
And remember, if you're a cinemaniac like me, make sure you like and subscribe down below.